Good evening, and welcome to the school committee meeting of Tuesday, September 13, 2022. The school committee began its meeting with an executive session about an hour ago. We have now closed the executive session and are prepared to open the rest of the meeting in our public session. Please, if you could, as we do all meetings, begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excuse me, thank you. Also, as we begin each meeting, the reading of the mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Item number 6 on our agenda, a public comment. Any member of the community who is interested in sharing thoughts with the committee is welcome to do so at this time. Please come forward, state your name, rank, and serial number, and hello, Amy.
Hello, I'm Amy Wall. I had a couple of things to talk about, and you're lucky because I couldn't remember one, so you're only getting 2 tonight.
Okay. We'll come back next week.
We'll come back here.
Be here next week.
Don't worry. So a couple of things. One, I'm looking forward to hear about the Power Schools update. I had a couple of questions about it. So I was still on the board, so it had to have been in April or so, was when we talked about approving Power Schools coming out, and it was going to roll out. So my first question is, what's the reasoning behind it taking so long for it to roll out, for students to get their schedules, teachers to get their schedules, and now there's still issues with schedules, so I kind of would like to hear an update on that. I know there's other parents as well as teachers that have been complaining about it, so just would kind of like to hear about that. One issue in particular is about classes being dropped for kids. I know my own child had a class that she wanted to take, was told it would fit. She's now dropped from that class, and instead she's in an ASC. So I'd like to hear an explanation as to why. That doesn't have to be tonight. These are just things to have, in the back of your mind, just to see if there's a reasoning behind that. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe she was told something incorrectly, but she's being told it's something to do with Power Schools. So I'd just like to hear a little bit about that. And then the other part, obviously, I'm here for the logo. So I know that tonight it's going to be on the agenda about sending a survey out to the students. So a couple of questions. I wanted to know who is going to be creating that document that's going to go out. Is that the committee? Because as a committee, we have not met. I think it's Doug that's probably going to be sending that out or working together with Amy, but I want to know if our committee is going to have any input on how that goes out. I'd like to see, I think it would be interesting to see, even if it doesn't mean anything, but I think it'd be interesting to see if there's an A, B, and C option, but also to add a D option that says something like other or none of the above or something to that effect, just so we can kind of get a feel for, are they just picking one because those are the only 3 options and they feel like they have to, or kind of if their mindset is somewhere else. The other part was, at the beginning of the meetings, we were told that, we would have these ideas that came out with the different designs, and that a graphic designer, those ideas would go to a graphic designer, they would be tweaked and everything. The 2 designs that were done by the committee itself were not sent to a graphic designer to be tweaked, so they're kind of rough sketches, where the other one is a professionally done one. So it's a little bit hard to compare a professional one to kind of scratches on a paper. That was that one. And then I wanted to know, I know it was spoken about before, about somebody was going to, I contacted OSU myself. I believe that, I don't know who on the committee also said that they were going to reach out to OSU about trademark infringement, so I don't know if that's been done yet. Or if anybody has called, if they've heard back, just to get an update on that. And that might be it. Let me just double check. Oh, and who is going to disseminate the survey? Is that going to go through an email? How's that going to be handled with the students? How are we going to advertise that this is out, so that we can get as much response from the students as possible? And I think that was yeah, that was it. That was all I had. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know that we don't engage in the comments, and I don't but plan to answer Amy's questions. I was just say for both Amy and the community, both of those questions are on tonight's agenda.
Yes.
And will be, I'm sure, discussed at the superintendent's report. Oh, any other members of the community wish to address the school committee at this time? Anyone on Zoom with us? No? Okay, seeing no one from the community here, moving on to item 7, consent agenda. We have a motion.
Move that the school committee approve the minutes of the August 16 and August 30, 2022 school committee meetings as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 8, budget items. Dr. Lyons, Ms. Bufagna?
Great. So tonight you have in your packet the financial reports from July and August. The first page is the local budget report. Really, the only real big change for this report is that we've encumbered all of the salaries, all of the known salaries for teachers and paraprofessionals, and for all of the hiring that we were doing at the end of August. So that money is encumbered, so we know that what our true balance is going into September, which is our big month to finish hiring vacancies and to do the first payroll for teachers and paras, which was on September 2nd. Also, you'll see we started spending down some of our grants that we received, our entitlement grants. We have about 32 paraprofessionals on the SPED IDEA grant, and then Title I and the METCO grant. The last is the revolving accounts, which it's not a lot of activity in August, particularly just summer school and a little bit of performing arts, and Wakefield Academy is probably the biggest in the summer for the revolving accounts. But pretty healthy, and we'll see a big difference once we report for September. Does anyone have questions? Right.
So, you said this is reflective as of August 31 rather?
This
Okay.
is July and August, yeah.
Right. Gotcha. Any other questions for Christine? Okay, next. Was there the payroll motion,
We have-
warrant rather?
A motion to accept the payrolls from August. There was 2 payrolls in August. Very small, without the teachers and the paras.
Amy?
Move that the school committee approve payroll warrants number 6 and number 8 as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. And nothing on gift tonight?
No gifts.
Okay. Very good. Comments that I'm going to make tonight have to do with the rescheduling of our school committee retreat. We've had some calendar changes as it went through the summer, and being mindful of appropriately so of different religious holidays in September. Our retreat got sort of bounced around a bit. So we have agreed that the school committee retreat and goal setting for fiscal year 23 and 24 will be on Wednesday, October 12th, in the evening. It'll be like a 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. session. It'll be open to the public. It'll be a community available. It will not be here in the studio. It'll be much more of an informal setting, but it is an open meeting, and the community is allowed to attend and observe, and there will be public comment as there would at any meeting. So please continue to mark your calendars. Hold that night, Wednesday, October 12th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at a location to be determined.
But it's not filmed.
It's not, no, it won't be here in the studio. Okay? So, we've got a hefty agenda, so I'm going to hold off on any other comments at this time. Just call the committee's attention. What I was going to talk about is some upcoming school committee other dates, but I pushed out an email a week or so at the end of maybe middle of last week about some upcoming, about things, like Wakefield 101 and some activities that the school district and the school committee has traditionally held a table or a booth at, just about scheduling our participation and support for helping to staff those. But we'll deal with that offline. Okay, thank you. Superintendent's report, Dr. Lyons.
With your permission, I'd like to take some of my items out of order, just
Go
to
right ahead.
get people in and out, right? And so I'd like to start off just quickly with comments and updates. If it's okay, I can take questions at the end. That way, we'll allow some of our visitors to kind of contribute in their presentations, and then be able to close themselves. So just quickly, comments and updates. So day one, opening day, we're almost through one 6-day cycle. And so getting through a 6-day cycle, the secondary levels, middle school and high school are on a 6-day rotating schedule. And getting through a 6-day rotating schedule gives levels, middle and high, an opportunity to kind of work out schedules, work out kinks and issues that they might have. Opening day for us this year was really exceptional. You know, when we welcomed teachers back initially, we had an alum join us for Zoom in and join us. Helen Tekla-Hymanot spoke to teachers about her experience here at the high school, and that was a very positive, kind of heart-filling event from my perspective. I think, you know, she talked a lot about her experience coming from Eritrea, where she migrated first to Ethiopia and then eventually made it to Boston, and joined the METCO program. And so was a non-native speaker and a member of the METCO program, and then kind of came to Wakefield for school. When she landed here, she explained to the teachers on opening day that, you know, teachers kind of make the weather. Teachers make the space for students. She spoke at length about Jack O'Brien and the space that he had created for her, and kind of how he helped her really feel and like she was a member of the community, and really developed a strong bond with her. She spent about 4 months in his classroom, where she would eat lunch there daily, till finally Jack said one day, you know, good news, bad news. Good news is you're going to the cafeteria to eat lunch. You know, bad news is you're going to the cafeteria to eat lunch. And but Jack very kindly kind of set her up with a few students to kind of keep, just to be supports for her. And to this day, those students are still best friends and really remarkable young women. And so, but Helen spoke far more eloquently than I'm giving credit to her speech, but she really hit home the idea that, you know, the people make the place, and that, you know, teachers, when they provide love and care that is provided every day, really the sky's the limit, you know. So Helen has been in the United States for about 8.5 years, is getting a second bachelor's degree, has a young daughter, and also has a little business for herself, and is working as a nurse down in North Carolina. And so it was really a first for us, where the guest speaker was one of our alum, and she did not disappoint. And so I'm very pleased to be able to talk about that. But that was kind of the tone and the energy that we opened school with. Very, very positive. I think teachers were genuinely thrilled to see students. Principals reported that our K students, this was the best start in quite a few years. I think I attribute that largely to the work that Kara has done with the Acceleration Academy and getting students in early. Really just a remarkable job in that space. And, you know, it gave students an opportunity to get in early. And, you know, elementary principals reported, you know, no tears, no one was stuck at the door. It's just really the opposite. I think students were, you know, disappointed when the day ended. And so it's really, I think, a testament to what we've created with something that the state has kind of, that wasn't quite their goal, but we've actually taken it and made it better. So we're really pleased about that, and pleased and thankful for all the teachers that have given their time and worked to set the stage to welcome our new students to the Wakefield Public Schools. Just a Power School update. I can speak quickly to kind of just the scale of some of what Amy brought up. So we had in place, I think for at least a couple decades, a program called IPASS, and kind of migrating students and student information, a student information system. So this is a database that is the kind of the underlying architecture that we then take information out of the database to use to schedule students, to provide grades for students, and there are discipline modules, there are other modules to kind of keep track of test data, IEPs, 504s. So this is a kind of a massive program in terms of scale. So this isn't like a plug and play, and it's not like, getting an update on your computer. This is kind of bringing everyone in, bringing everyone on board. And what we were able to do is to migrate some of the information from IPASS over to the Power School database. New students were not in the IPASS, or in IPASS, the IPASS. I sound like my parents right now. And so, the Facebook, yes. And so, but we've brought information over and we're chipping away. And Amy, I can't answer the question, but I will find out and we'll report back in the next meeting about issues in regard to why a schedule worked the way it has. It might be kind of more efficient even just to reach out to the high school principal or the high school guidance department to David Robinson, and if I can help with that, I'd be more than happy to do that. But that's a very quick update and about Power School.
Doug, do you want to just add in just our training schedule? Do you want more details on that, or do you want?
Sure, go ahead.
No, kind of just trying to keep in mind, like Doug said, just that how large of a project it was, and just trying to move at a pace that would get us ready for day one. So we did do a series of trainings throughout the summer, just trying to target specific groups: nurses, counselors, administrators. We have an excellent group of teacher trainers who have taken on the role and can be building-based support. And then we'll have further time for secondary 5 to 12 on our first half day on September 21st. So we're planning that now too. So it's kind of like everybody's just really rallied to try to get this done, kind of with the idea that in the long run, this is a much better program for our district, but we're working through the kinks right now. So I think long term it will be really good, but just trying to move as quickly as we can with different groups.
You're spot on. You're spot on. And so this is a new program. This is new, and this isn't only bringing in a new program. It's trying to get adults to learn the program, trying to support them to learn, try to support students and families to acclimate as well. So there are several kind of users and audiences that we're working with as well. Our teacher trainers and our IT department have been working triple time to pull all this together and to make it work. And so, but there are kinks, and we will get there. And Power School will likely be a topic on every agenda for at least the next 6 weeks, right? And so, and that's where we are. And it will also be important for you to hear others report beyond just me, the superintendent, reporting from where I sit. It'd be nice to hear from others to kind of just share their experiences as well. But that's a very quick update. Yes, sir.
I've been impressed by sort of the resources that were made, like in short order, like the videos on how to set up in Power School. That was great. Is there a forward-looking, as you name different modules, I can imagine that something like that would be valuable to parents to go back and how do I look up that IP again,
Yeah.
and where was that, and
Yeah.
is that in the works?
That is very much in the works.
Great.
And so we've cleaned up a few of the videos, and those are going on to YouTube right now as we speak. And Jimmy Martin at the high school is kind of magic in that space. Very creative, very smart, and it's just really, not only is he an IT, a stipended IT teacher he teaches social studies, but he's a stipended person that kind of supports IT for the rest of the staff. But he's also amazingly creative, amazingly supportive, and just an exceptional teacher. So he innately can understand not only the task, but kind of where people might have difficulty and how to support that. So he's created, we exchanged emails this evening before school committee. So again, cleaned up two that are going on YouTube, and he will be producing another one likely by the middle of next week. So
Great.
that will help as well. But one important, the last piece about Power School, and I need to move on, but the last piece about Power School is we will be sending out an email tomorrow just notifying parents to please update or create accounts if you're new to the district, or update student information if your information has been ported over. So that, because if you don't update and create an account, when we are doing our messenger emails to the entire community for things like snow days or things like certain updates, you will not get that information unless you create an account for yourself. And so we're also prepared to support people if they have difficulty with that.
I think that email went out today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I say tomorrow?
You did.
Today, I'm sorry. My days are off. And so,
Exceeded your expectations.
thank you.
Yeah.
What's that?
You exceeded your expectations.
So just other news, just in regard to updates. We administratively are working at the district level with different kind of leaders in the district, just kind of updating our safety plans. All schools will be going through kind of a progression of drills. Fire drills, shelter-in-place drills, and ALICE. And so what that will look like, just to clarify my opening letter, what that will look like is adults need to train first. Then they coach students and train students before we enter full-scale drills. So that's really important to know, but we will be kind of chipping away at that again in a progression. So I know that schools in their faculty meetings have given some time and space just to reviewing our drill protocols that include fire drills, shelter in place, and ALICE. Happy to answer any questions that anyone might have on that. No? Other than that, just in regard to an update on the logo, so our plan is, so the committee that worked with the high school administration moved 3 recommendations forward. So in moving those forward and in kind of adhering to the policy, we feel like that group did what they needed to do. And in kind of debriefing in the spring, we were left with 3 choices. Just for clarification, one, the image with the gazebo was cleaned up in our art department. So that was separate from the W and separate from our 3rd image. And so the plan is to, and we got pretty good feedback around including our rising 8th graders. I think Amy Wall recommended this in the spring. And so we will be putting together a survey. The administration will be putting together a survey to get that information out. And it will likely have about a week for students to answer that. But that is still in the works. Okay? So that's where we are there. Any questions on that?
Bandstand. Not gazebo.
Not gazebo, bandstand. You're dating yourself, Michael.
I probably
Is it,
don't need any more help.
is it bandstand? Bandstand. I stand corrected.
Does Kevin agree?
Depends on who you ask.
We're looking at you, Kevin, for
confirmation.
confirmation. Yeah. Okay, I stand corrected, and I will, please, I will make that change in future commentary, and I will cite my source. And so I thank you for that feedback.
Before you move on, may I
Sure.
interrupt for a quick second? On the topic of the logo, I think we want to talk about when it's coming back, right? The expectation is that you're going to be putting out the survey to the students in grades 8 through 12
Correct.
before the end of September?
It will likely be out before the end of September. It will be together by the end of this week, and then would like to have it out for a week. And students will be able to kind of take a look and then choose accordingly, yes.
Because where I was going was sort of the end game, if you will.
Yes.
That it would be back to the committee at one of our October meetings.
Yes.
The results of the survey, more community input, and then the committee to vote on the recommendation that may be made.
You're ahead of me,
So-
but sounds
Oh,
great.
okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were moving on
Sounds
topics.
like a good plan.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry, man.
No, it's
I thought
okay.
you were, my bad, sorry about that.
So good, but no, I think that sounds like.
We're all ahead of ourselves tonight.
Keep going.
Terrific,
We're ready to
terrific.
adjourn.
And so,
Motion to adjourn.
so I know we're going quickly, happy to answer any questions again at the end. I'd like to introduce Dustin O'Brien, who is our new food service director. Dustin has 14 years' experience. He spent the last 9 years in Belmont, and before that, he was in Smithfield, Rhode Island, and Central Falls, and so it's pretty gritty, and he's done quite a bit in a short amount of time. He's an Eisenberg UMass Business School graduate, and he's done, again, I think we had interviewed and we were kind of holding our breath, really trying to understand what the candidate pool might look like. I think Dustin came in, and I think that the search had ended at that point. We're very fortunate to have been able to hire him, and I'd just like to introduce, give you an opportunity to meet Dustin O'Brien. Dustin.
Can't hear him. He's speaking.
It's like speed dating with no voice.
Is he on mute?
Dead air is the worst thing possible. Right?
Dustin, you're muted. Can you hear me?
I don't think he's muted. I think it's us.
Go ahead.
Because his box turned green. I don't think he's muted.
Okay.
I think it's us.
You do?
Yeah. Like the speaker.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Dustin. You're a handsome man.
It's just power. It's always red. I just don't know if it's
Quite the credentials, as the superintendent has explained. We are far more interested in your cooking skills than your speaking skills, so it's all good.
Hey, Brian?
Dustin.
Oh.
Can you see if someone else on the Zoom can talk and we can hear them?
I think, yeah, we could do that.
Just to see if it's a.
Brian, can you hear me? Brian Black?
Or you.
We can't hear anybody.
And the volume's up.
So can our friends at WCAT help us sort of figure this out so we can...
You can see the dots.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they are. I'm just saying we can move on and come back,
They're doing something.
as opposed to everyone looking at... What?
No, he can hear us.
You can hear us, Dustin?
Or
We
you
just
can
can't hear you,
Brian,
Dustin.
maybe.
Yep.
So, that's a great question. Can you hear WCAT from the control room?
They're working on it.
Okay.
Just up there.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Breaking the accent.
Well,
Well, why don't we move on?
That'd be
And then-
great.
And then when the technology comes back to us, oh, are we back?
Original sound. Wow. Mean.
Yeah, but they're singing this too.
Dustin, if the cup is half full, at least the committee can put a name with a face,
Yeah.
and you can certainly,
I'm still trying to pick out
The
which
good
one
news
to
is we meet twice a month, you're always welcome. So,
Sorry.
Meals are free.
so maybe Dr. Lyons and WCAT, we can move on to the next presentation for the in-studio folks, and try to work out whatever tech problems may be existing, so we could at least get the left field folks who are on Zoom with us too.
that would be great.
Okay? Thank you.
Dustin, thank you. Much appreciated. You could put your daughter to bed. So I'd like to invite to the table Shannon Blacker and Rosie Galvin. Shannon and Rosie will be doing a brief presentation on special education.
Now it says sound off.
Thanks for having us, everyone. Okay, great. So yes, we know you have a tight agenda, so we're hoping to make this quick, but I wanted to just give kind of an overview of special education in the district, and then talk about just follow-ups from the last meeting where I was here in the spring, March of last academic year, in terms of some of the kind of the priorities and the things that we're working on in the department in terms of vision. Hello. Okay. And then Shannon's going to talk through early childhood programming. I know there was a lot of questions about the new pre-K classroom at the Woodville Elementary School, so she'll touch upon all of that. And then I'll end with just some resources for our CPAC, which is our Special Education Parent Advisory Council. So here's just an overview of special education in the district, and I'll just give some comparisons historically and last year when I kind of gave this presentation in the spring, looking at last year's numbers as well. So about 16.9% of our student body are students who are on IEPs district-wide. There's a breakdown of how many of those are considered in-district students versus OOD is out-of-district. Pre-K students who are getting services only, meaning they're not students who are attending Doyle full-time, but they're coming in to receive a related service. And then the rest of them are students who are private placed or homeschooled. I wanted to put some information in terms of placements. So the percentages that break down there, and I'll touch upon it when we get to program development in a couple other slides and relate it back to here. But just so you can see an overview of the percentage of students who are the 563 students in our district and where they are in terms of program placement. So full inclusion means that the student is in the general education classroom in an inclusion setting for at least 80% of their time in a given week. If a student's placement dictates partial inclusion, it means that they're in that inclusion classroom at least 60% of the time in a given week or cycle. And then substantially separate means that they're receiving the majority of their services, at least 60% of their day outside of the general education classroom. For various reasons. Maybe they need kind of direct instruction from a special education teacher and or related services. So that's just an overview. It doesn't add up to 100% because it doesn't include, of course, the students who are out of district and the rest on there, just the 563 who are in-district students. Our most common disability category is kind of a tie for specific learning disability in various specific learning disabilities, and then the health disability category as well. I just wanted to give a couple other stats in terms of out-of-district numbers, which I know is something we've talked about historically and that kind of has been a topic of conversation. So our out-of-district numbers have decreased compared to last year. So we had 33 students last year on our out-of-district caseload, and this year we're starting the year off with 26 students, which is great. And so that's for various reasons. Maybe some students aged out when they reach 22 years old, they are no longer eligible for services through an IEP. So that was some students that decreased that number. We had others who maybe moved out of district. We brought some students back from out of district into our in-district programming. So happy to answer more questions about that, but this is just a general overview in terms of special education district-wide.
Do you want to answer questions about this or no? Wait to the end.
Are there any programs that we brought in or have changed that have helped bring in some of the students that were out of district last year in district this year?
So I'll touch upon programs in a second
Okay.
and kind of looking at the ones that we have new this year or expanded our continuum of services. But to answer that question, there's one student we brought back in, and the student is in a program that has already historically existed. Okay. So I just wanted to follow up on when I was here last March, just talking about, at that point I was just finishing year one here in the district and kind of talking about things that I've learned in year one and kind of where I see the vision as the department moving forward. And so when I was here, I spoke about kind of how I felt like we have really strong teams in this district for special education and that we have really solid structures in place. And I gave some examples like our WIN structure, the What I Need block, and the equivalent at the other levels outside of elementary school. Our professional development plan, which I'll also touch upon in a second, that's highly individualized and differentiated for teachers based on their role. I gave other examples of the COVID support where historically the district really prioritized supporting some of our highest need students throughout COVID, and just another example of the curriculum leadership structure that we have. And so I kind of spoke about how those solid structures are in place and we have really solid, strong teams, and so that we're really at the point of looking to capitalize on our strong teams and our solid structures in order to kind of, with that goal that's quoted here, look at continuing to refine our continuum of services for students and make sure that we have really robust programs in district to serve all of our students. And at that meeting last academic year, I talked about how I kind of look at achieving that goal through the framework of being consistently student-centered and data-driven in terms of decision making that we have for a variety of decisions. And just the last part at the bottom is kind of tying that all together in the framework for achieving this goal I spoke about was through high quality IEP writing, which last year special education teachers and faculty had PD that was really tailored to creating high quality compliant IEPs. And just the framing that we want to make sure that we're starting at creating high quality IEPs. Those then allow us to drive programming that we have, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then the programming that the student needs allows us to drive scheduling and other decision making, like student placement or teacher placement, instead of kind of having a model that we fit students into, of really looking to do the reverse of having it start off being student-centered and data-driven and what kids need, and then allowing that to drive programming and scheduling also. So I'll touch on those things in a moment. Right here is just a list of programs, and it's in this visual so that you can see the vertical alignment across the district. I'm happy to share this visual with anyone. We have a PDF of it. And so this is what it looked like as of kind of the end of last year and where our programs were within the district. If you click, Shannon, one more, to kind of answer your question, looking at new programs that we created. So you can see that visual was clearly missing kind of that Compass equivalent at the elementary level. And so these are students, to go back to the beginning, of the more substantially separate percentage or partial inclusion for receiving some services outside of the gen ed classroom. We had historically had the other services there, but really looking and noticing that that equivalent at the elementary level wasn't yet in existence. And so we did a lot of work towards the end of last year, the beginning of this year, to create the Compass program, which is now housed at the Woodville School. That's a small group of students, 4 of them in grades K through 4. Happy to answer more questions about that. But if you click 2 more times, Shannon. This year, we also looked to expand the continuum of services for students who are just reaching middle school age. And so we expanded the ICLP program, which I'll explain these acronyms in a moment, and our STRIVE program to support students moving from 4th grade to 5th grade within our district. And so I'll touch upon just the what these acronyms mean and why. So historically, kind of wanting to get away from naming programs by the disability category that students primarily make up that program. So ICLP stands for Integrated Care and Learning Program. Students who need more of that substantially separate setting in order to receive their academics that are highly differentiated to their level. The other acronyms that are on there that are new are STRIVE, which is Structured Teaching, Reinforcing a Visual Environment. It's primarily students with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, who are in that classroom. So I just wanted to highlight this because I think it's a nice visual that kind of shows the vertical alignment. I will touch on the language base at the Galvin, which I know was a conversation last year and historically in terms of an additional MSN FTE to that program, so that now we have students in grades 5 through 8 who are in the language-based program. So if you have other questions about these programs or kind of the composition of who makes it up or what kind of staff supports them, I'm happy to answer those, but just wanted to provide this as a quick overview.
I just have a, so what we used to call the autism program, we're now calling STRIVE. Then what we used to call the medically fragile is the, what acronym?
ICLP, Integrated
ICLP.
Care and Learning
Okay.
Program, correct.
Thank you.
Yeah. And of course, you know, as students in these programs move into Wakefield High School, we're going to continue to make sure we're thinking really thoughtfully and planning really strategically to support these students so that families know we're planning for them well in advance and that we're thinking about kind of what these services will look like by the time they get to that grade.
So Rosie, the goal is to fill in all the empty blocks, correct?
Essentially as needed, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it will look different in terms of what the program looks like at each level. And kind of the ideal is that students will need less kind of more highly structured support as they can fade away as they get older, but yeah. Okay. I just want to touch upon this in terms of professional development, kind of as I was talking about the vision prior. Sorry for the formatting there, but I know that this has been a topic of kind of conversation, is making sure that our 8 Wednesday professional development days throughout the year are highly individualized to meet teachers' needs. And so last time I was here presenting at school committee, I talked about how the focus for special education teachers was creating high quality compliant IEPs as kind of that first part in the IEP writing, scheduling, and programming, one driving the next. And so this year we're continuing to make sure that professional development is highly differentiated, even more so. So the bottom line there, or kind of the visual here, is one example of one subset of special education teachers and what their scope and sequence will look like for their 8 Wednesday half days this year. So this happens to be for teachers who, ULS stands for Unique Learning Systems, which is a curriculum that's highly differentiated, standards aligned for special education students that we're starting to roll out in some of our programs. So I just give this as an example to show how highly differentiated it is, and so that teachers who are in some of our specialized programs who are using unique learning systems, this is their scope and sequence professional development. And similarly, teachers who are language-based teachers, we contract with Landmark Outreach, for example, their 8 Wednesday half days will be tailored to exactly what their role is with a consultant who will help them with program development, kind of consultation on student cases and things like that. ICLP, for example, we're working with conning consultation. They're getting, really small group with their consultant about program development, curriculum, and things like that. So happy to answer more questions, but I just wanted to tie that into kind of creating strong IEPs and how that kind of drives that process and what an example would look like.
Like, for example, for the half day on September 21st, when you have differentiated instruction for levels 1, 2, and 3, is that just the special ed teachers that are going to be in that PD? Or I was just wondering if that's something that regular ed teachers would also be in, because I know a lot of classes get co-taught. Especially in the higher level.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. This is just for actually 9 special education teachers district-wide who are using this particular ULS program, and it's more of the teachers in the substantially separate setting. So these are kind of targeted webinars with the staff of Unique Learning Systems. So it's very specific, which is kind of the point in terms of making sure that it's really differentiated. So this is only 9 special ed teachers schedules, and then our 4 MSNs, or special ed teachers who are language-based teachers, will be with Landmark Outreach. Our 2 ICLP teachers will be with Coding. So it's really, very differentiated to that regard.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, Kevin, we'll just add to the PD plan. We're working to finalize that district-wide. Our goal is to get it out by Friday, and then that will be on our website as well, so you can see the breakout of every department, academic department. Like Rosie was just saying, within special ed alone, there's probably, 10 different options based on your role. So like the special ed inclusion teachers will have a different, just like you said. But we'll have that readily available by Friday, hopefully.
Yeah, and even looking to do it for related service providers as well. So instead of having, all related service providers, OT, PT, SLP, school psychs together in one group, really spreading it out so that SLPs can collaborate together, do problems of practice, do webinars related to their practice. And so it's really differentiated.
Great.
That's all. Shane, I'll pass along to you to do.
Okay. So I'm next. So I'm here to provide an update on the early childhood update. I'm not going to say Doyle anymore because we've expanded now to Woodville. So we changed everything, although the Doyle pictures are there. So first, I just provided an overview on philosophy. This is just in our little pamphlet that we give out every year to all of our parents, and it's on our website, so I don't need to read it. You have it here. But basically, it's for our early childhood center. It's for 3 to 5-year-olds, and we, everything's aligned to the Massachusetts state frameworks, and everything's based on those skills right there at the bottom: language acquisition, social, cognitive, gross motor, fine motor, and daily living skills. So I'm not gonna read every little detail. I know numbers were a question, so here is our overall numbers. So total enrollment for both Doyle and Woodville classes, there's 136 students that we're servicing, 93 of which are tuition-based, 48 students on IEPs. This is a growing number over the years since I've been here. When I first started at Doyle, which was 5-6 years ago, 19 I started with my first year. That started in September. So, and this is an ongoing dilemma amongst special ed directors because the growing number, districts don't have space for all these number of children coming in. The pandemic has definitely played a role in students coming in because early intervention services were not in place for 3 years. So our 3-year-olds are coming in much more needier than they have ever been. So it's a growing number. So Doyle alone has 125 students, 82 tuition-based, and 43 of those students on IEPs. And Woodville has that one classroom with 16 students, 11 tuition, and 5 on IEPs. That's the breakdown specifically there. Any questions on numbers?
I have a question. How high can the Woodville go, or are they at max at 16?
Yep,
Okay, great.
rolling right into it.
Shannon, can you
Sure.
just, before you do that, can you go back one slide and could you just describe the picture for the school committee?
Oh, so that picture is of us sledding 2 years ago, actually. So this is a paraprofessional going down on the tube with a student who was 3, sitting on her lap. So every winter, I just started implementing some fun things throughout the year. I think the adults loved it more than the kids, to be honest with you. So, and this year we plan on doing it and busing the Woodville students over so they can take part in it. So. All the teachers just bring their sleds from all their kids, and we have a fun day.
How do you
Every
like-
class goes out for about 40 minutes, and I go out for the whole day. So that's fun.
How do you like the new digs? Looks nice.
It's great.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. All right, so at Doyle, there's 10 classrooms. So we have one sub-separate program with 5 students currently in it. One of our integrated classrooms has a 6-to-4 ratio. That's only done because of the size of the classroom. Those of you who've been to Doyle, there was 2 classrooms added into the gym, so we can't fit many more students in there with the adults. So that ratio is there for a reason. There are 4 integrated classrooms that have right now an 8-to-5 ratio, 8 tuition-based, 5 special education students. They can go up to an 8-7 ratio. We have to allow some open spots because as children turn 3 years old, they're enrolling as 3 as they qualify for IEPs. And then there are 4 integrated classrooms that have an 11-to-5 ratio. And then the classroom at Woodville has the 11-to-5 ratio, similar to the other 4 classrooms at Doyle. The state requirements for, there's ratios that you have to keep for special education students to general education students in classrooms. If you have classrooms of 15, the ratio can be a 51-49 split. So that's the 8-7 ratio. If you go above 15 and get to 16, you only can have 5 students on IEPs in there. You have to do an 11-to-5 ratio. You cannot have any more than that. That's the rule for the state. So this has changed over time. And to be quite honest with you, every year we play with the ratios and the number of classrooms we do what based on the number of students on IEPs. So I feel like I've gotten really good at the Sudoku puzzle that I have to constantly do at Doyle, but this is how it has shaken out this year. Other years we were able to do only 2 classrooms of 8-7 and with more of the 11-5 ratio. So
So I have a couple questions. The 11-5, are those the older classrooms? Did you change it actually this year to do more like 3? Because I remember we talked about that
Ready?
last year. Oh, that's an excellent. Wait, go
okay,
back.
okay, sorry.
And maybe this is on the next slide. The sub-separate, is that all, there's no model students in that? It's
Correct.
all IEP
That's a
students?
substantially separate program. They do integrate in for a period of,
Yeah.
depending on the
Yeah.
individual student. Some integrate for just, say, recess and lunch. Others integrate for a circle time or a center time based on their IEPs.
Okay, thank you.
So like I said, EI referrals come to me from early intervention. That's what EI stands for. I know all the acronyms. Early intervention referrals come to me about 6 months prior to a child turning 3 years old. So when that happens, I go to what's called a TPC, Transition Planning Conference, with the parents and the student and the EI early intervention providers. We determine what evaluations we want to conduct. We do the evaluations, and then we have a team meeting and determine eligibility just like a typical IEP meeting. And if eligible, students are eligible to start on their 3rd birthday. So currently, we are in the process of doing 7 evaluations from early intervention, and 2 parent referrals have come in from now until November. And we have 9 in my office that I will be going to TPCs on in November through February. That's about 18, and currently we have 14 slots open. So again, this is the number I always juggle with, but not all will qualify for programming. Some will qualify for services only. Some qualify for programming half day, full day. So we juggle our numbers and fit them where appropriate. And then here's the the breakdown of what we're doing for the age-based pilot this year. So 2 of our classrooms at Doyle and the classroom at Woodville are for 4.4 years old and older. So those are the older kids that are coming to us. They will be starting earlier in the school year on some of our curriculums that we roll out. So foundations, typically we start, I had here, well, I can't click on it, but the 2 differences, so you'll see if you click on them, if you have them in your presentation, the monthly curriculum outline that doesn't have pilot next to it, all those classrooms start the foundations curriculum in January, so it's the second half of the year that we do it. But the classrooms that are 4.4 and older for pilot are starting that in November. And then they're going to move into the Haggerty piloting that is happening in the elementary schools. The Haggerty program, they have a preschool version that the Kara and the coordinators have brought down to us. We'll be piloting that for the second half at Doyle for those older classrooms. And then we're exploring working with the math curriculum coordinator on bringing some of that math curriculum into those classrooms as well for the second half of the year. With a real focus the second half of the year on like readiness, maybe going to the cafeteria for lunch, getting out of the room a little bit.
Can you share? Can you share a little bit about foundations and Haggerty, please?
Sure. So the Foundations program is the K through 2 program that is used in the elementary schools. It's the letter identification, sounds, phonics program that they're using. There's a preschool version of that. So we've been doing that for a few years at Doyle. Again, it's letter sounds, letter naming. The Haggerty goes a little bit more into more of that phonemic awareness, the rhyming, a little bit expanding on what Foundations already does. Am I correct?
Yeah.
I'm learning Haggerty for the first time as well. So I looked at it today. Okay. Any questions about those classrooms? So the other classrooms at Doyle, there are some 4-year-olds, a little bit older 4-year-olds in some of those classrooms. Those are based on, teacher recommendations or parent recommendations. They wanted to stick with the same teacher for a couple of years, and if we could honor that, we did, knowing that we were going to have this older classrooms. But the majority of those children are 3 or young 4s in those classrooms. So their days look a little different, a lot more diaper changing happening in those classrooms versus the 4.4 and older.
Shannon, the 4.4, is it September 1st cutoff?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So 4.4 as of September.
Yep.
This might be for Kara though. The Haggerty piloting, is it part of the ELA and it might take foundations, or is it the same?
So it was kind of, as part of our ELA review, we did some pre-work to just kind of not stay stagnant and really tackle the foundational skills component this year with a couple of pilots. So we did some summer professional development and some things in the spring. We had some teachers pilot Haggerty in kindergarten last year and just did an analysis of the results. So we were prepared to pilot the recommendations for building up our foundational skills this year. So we have Haggerty launched and ready to go pre-K through 2, and foundations we moved up to grade 3. And we did a reset PD for everyone because I think foundations originally came to district 7-8 years ago, but we felt like just for the information we'd gather from teachers that a reset would be helpful across the board. So, so it's really positive just in terms. And then we've also we're continuing to do training on our dyslexia screener, which we'll do 3 times a year using Dibbles. That is getting going this year as well.
So one of the things that I wanted to point out is because this is like a pilot for this year, we want to see how this goes. If this goes well and we get great feedback, then that will affect the way we probably do registration for next year, because we will pinpoint a certain amount of classrooms and maybe do a lottery for the 4-year-olds and a lottery for the 3-year-olds. Rather than this year, we decided to do that after registration. So we had to juggle the kids a little bit to make it work. So, but a lot of districts do age-based classrooms, and they do lotteries for the particular age groups.
So when you say if it's a pilot, how will you measure that? Is it parent feedback? Is it data driven?
So I've already told the Woodville parents, I plan on sending some surveys out to see how the Woodville in particular class goes, just because there will be more questions to that survey than just the Doyle classrooms around, just transition in general, about how that goes there. And then I'll also take feedback from the teachers who are going to implement some of these curriculums to see how, well, all teachers really, because the 3-year-old groups too. So I plan on working with our ILT on some of that this year, and the help from everybody else.
And with and since the Woodville is 4.4 and I think there's 2 at the Doyle, what is the breakout? Is all the students in Woodville preschool going to be Woodville students?
Amy, you're perfect for my presentation.
It's like you were planting.
I know, right?
And introducing the next
Oh, I think they knew the questions I was going to ask.
For my last presentation here, I kind of gathered what you were looking for. So here's the breakdown. So we started with less Woodville students, to be honest with you, in this classroom. But after our peak in practice in June, and then the parents like feedback back and forth about an early childhood center, kids wanting to, they were scared of 4th graders, parents doing a lot of back and forth in their own head. I mean, imagine yourself first year with a 3-year-old, like 4-year-old, debating what they want to do, So it started with less, and it kind of morphed into more because of arrival and pickup, honestly. It was easier for some families to be, and they were already in. They were in through the lottery. So when we asked parents, it was like, well, I'd rather go to Woodville because I have another child there in 3rd grade. So we did honor some of that. So this is the breakdown. And we did hand pick the students on IEPs to go to the Woodville classroom because they are Woodville students. So it made sense for less transition for the IEP students. So the number is heavier there. So if we could have one in every elementary school, we'd fill them.
Were there any parents that didn't get what they wanted, or do you think that everyone was happy at the end?
I think everyone was happy at the end.
Okay.
Yep. We still have people calling every day, seeing if we have openings.
Looking for space.
I've turned away, I think, 5 this week alone, just to say, we have a wait list, put yourself on the wait list, but we're full. So.
Is there opportunity anywhere else in the district to add another classroom?
Not this year.
Not this year. No, I know not this year, but space-wise.
It's pretty tight. It's our elementary schools are really, really tight right now.
Yeah.
This is, us really thinking outside of the box. There was no pre-K space, pre-K furniture, pre-K teacher at Woodville, right? And this was also, this classroom was also being used differently last year than this year. So at this point in time, I don't know that there will be other opportunities, but we will watch the numbers and think really carefully about what's possible.
There's also an impact at Woodville where there's a 2nd grade bubble class.
Yeah.
So between that class and bringing in the PK, it's just swollen I think there's like 440 students in the school right now. Kudos. The space, I just hear great things about it.
Yeah, so this is actually pictures from the classroom yesterday. I was in there. So I took some pictures of the kids doing an activity right after they read a story. So she has it set up similar to a kindergarten classroom, which is great. They are doing lunch in the classrooms just like we do at Doyle, but for the second half of the year, we're going to see if we can get them into the caf, try some things. So they get to go upstairs to do the library, which is nice. So they're doing a couple different things there. So
Shannon, can you talk a little bit about how the dynamic changes the school and having younger students there?
Yeah, so I think having younger students makes everyone feel a little bit older. So with kindergartners, they're always the youngest, but I think I just walked out of the classroom yesterday and saw some of the Doyle students who are now in kindergarten, and they were like, "You're here now too because there's a preschool class and we're older than them." Some of them said that to me. So I think it gets everyone in line, and then it gives the 4th graders an opportunity to really step up and be really great role models for all the kids and staff alone too. It helps staff morale, I think, having little ones around. I know everyone says Doyle's the happiest place on earth because all these little kids run around. So I think bringing a preschool classroom there will make everyone else happy too around them. So it does definitely bring a different dynamic. to
Doug, a
school.
question, and this may be a wacky suggestion even. Is there any capability to isolate the facilities at Galvin and let's say the new high school to accommodate classrooms of this type? Or is it just too close to, and the age gap is too problematic? Just curious.
Nope, it's possible.
Yeah.
Yep, it's possible.
Yeah.
A wing on the new high school?
Well, hopefully you don't have to wait that long.
Preschool here. I went to
In our design, we
preschool.
have some early childhood spaces designated right now.
Yeah, nice.
Nothing at Galvin, though, probably.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
But I will tell you that prior to coming to Wakefield, in building another an elementary school next door in Reading, they had kindergarten classes that were housed at Coolidge Middle School, and it did exactly what Shannon described. You know, people were very nervous about having kindergartners with middle schoolers, and I think it made the whole school a much better, kinder place when there were younger students there. So, yeah, there's some really nice potential. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a pre-K classroom in the high school for 11 years, and it was great.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal, and we had a really good there were at least 2 or 3 sections of high school classes for childcare,
Yeah.
and it was great. So
Yeah, let's think of it,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
even high school, they get that exposure to maybe teaching, student teaching, because it's right there too. So there's a lot of potential benefits to it, so.
One of the things I didn't put in the presentation, I was just telling Rosie that happened, is we are now partnering with the POST program. The POST students are doing some of their job opportunities at Doyle. So they have reached out to me this week, which is great. And it's like full circle for some of these kids. So
That's great, thank you.
I know you said that you'll do a sled day, so the Woodville kids will get to go to the Doyle. Is there an opportunity for the 4-year-olds to come over to the Woodville and maybe do like a sharing day, or just so they can see,
that's a great idea.
or maybe eat in the cafeteria, so everyone gets kind of
Yeah.
the same experience?
That's a great idea.
Can Amy go sledding too?
Right? Sure, come on over.
Winter's not my. I'll serve the hot chocolate.
You gotta help 16 kids get into their snow gear though. That's the fun part.
And then as far as the budget, are we running at a loss, or is the tuition that we're coming in for the new Wood class covering the expenses?
It's covering the teacher and the para.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Cool.
Are you calling them wood ducks?
Yeah, right? They're both bears and ducklings. They got Woodville t-shirts.
Can they get the bumper stickers for the back?
Yeah, right?
That's kind of like,
Magnet.
at the magnet, sorry.
Gazebo bands.
Matt's a little competitive, so I gotta keep up with him. Any other questions?
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Great stuff,
Shannon,
Thank you.
Rosie,
Yes,
thank
thank you
Thanks
very
very
much.
much appreciated.
Well done.
2 quick things. I mean, I hate to jump from
Sorry.
fun early childhood to compliance, but I'll just say this if you guys have the PowerPoint. But
Way to take the air out of the room, Rosie.
really fun. We're up.
Somebody has to do it,
right? Yeah, we have our tiered focus monitoring, which is formally called coordinated program review. Yes, so we had a self-assessment that was due at the end of last academic year, which included kind of a file review and then documentation in regards to civil rights. I realize how boring this is, and special education documentation. Our on-site visit is this academic year, where they'll be coming in, doing interviews with faculty, staff, admin, and so yeah, we're up for our tiered focus monitoring. I will keep you guys posted as much as you want to know about kind of the results of that. So that's what this slide is about. And then the last one is just a plug for CPAC, which is our Special Education Parent Advisory Council. So anyone, kind of families who are watching, there's an email address on here, wakefieldcpac@gmail.com. These are the names of our leaders, and Chris and Chrissy. They run usually monthly events. In October, we have a meet and greet with special education faculty happening, so I'll give more information out about that. There's some examples of previous events that the CPAC has run, so we're still kind of finalizing what that schedule will be for this year in terms of events, but just wanted to plug CPAC real quick as well. Thank you, guys.
So I have one more comment, since I'll say it now instead of in the end, but I just want to thank Rosie and Shannon, because my daughter came in from early intervention, and you kind of didn't know what Wakefield had. You would ask other parents, like, what's going on, what does Wakefield have for programs, and I even learned what a program was. So I just want to thank you for the work. I joke when Rosie was hired, it was like we were getting an audit without paying the auditor, because you really came in and had to learn everything we had from scratch and improve on that. So thank you. And then the other piece is that the mixed classes, because I remember being at the Doyle and parents were like, I didn't know if they wanted their 3-year-old with a 4-year-old, because the 4-year-old was, they just didn't feel like they were getting, so that I'd like to, can't wait to see how that pilot works out. So thank you both.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Can you put this off?
Next up, we have a presentation from Left Field and SMMA. Brian, Ian, can we see the team from Left Field and SMMA? If they're still on?
I'd like to keep that Darth Vader thing going if we could.
All right, let's see if we can get them on. We're having an audio issue with it right now for some reason. We're trying to troubleshoot.
It hasn't been there for a
Is there
while.
a
It
short
was
break
like
if you
my
wanted?
second year through my
Like
11th,
dig in there and
12th
try to figure it out, or if you
But
want
they,
to move on to something else, we can work on it in
basically,
the background, but you may hear this occasion.
It wasn't in a main lane where the high school students
Get things
were.
back
It was
online.
it was pretty much.
So Shireen, for clarity in what you just said,
It was only one classroom.
if we were to take a break, you would be better technically capable of troubleshooting?
But yeah.
Possibly, but I hear Ian now, so possibly
It doesn't- it
he's
doesn't
figured
matter.
it out.
I've got this
Yeah,
part.
they moved them.
Okay, well, that's a plus.
And they
Okay,
moved
they
that
had more
group
space.
to-
Something weird's
So
going on.
would you like
with
us to
that.
take 5 minutes and you know, sort of address that without us being,
I'm gonna let Mr. McDermott answer that question real quick.
okay?
Ian, do you think a short break would be appropriate in this matter to try to troubleshoot this, or do you think we might have it figured out?
Brian, would you talk and make sure they can hear you?
Sure, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay,
you see
that's
me?
that. Now I just gotta figure out why the video left.
Sometimes it's the best friend, sometimes it's not.
And no, nothing about technology is friendly.
Apologies for the
No,
issue.
hey, not a problem, Ryan. You guys have so much going on. It's,
You can tell us a little bit
it's
about
It's a real miracle
yourself.
these problems don't exist. You guys are on top of your game, so.
We
So
certainly
would
do.
you actually like us to take 5 minutes and
You know, honestly,
give you a chance to-
we're happy to put a screen up for folks that are watching online or anything, but anyone on Zoom will still hear everything that's happening. So, I would say sure. If you think you guys would be up for it, let's take 5.
Sure.
If we can, we'll come back
Because
with.
I think having
hopefully everything
the
working.
presenters visually able to see us and
Oh, I
them
agree.
is an important.
They have their presentation as well, so we're gonna need to make sure that works. So,
Okay. All right.
so I do offer my apologies to everybody here and
No worries,
SMA
no
and
worries,
at home as
please.
well. But
So how about, so you think 5 minutes is enough, or should we do 10? Well, I'm
you know,
not
let's
really
call
relying on
it
your
10 and
guidance.
hope that we're back in 5. Sound good?
So without objection, we'll take a 10-minute break. Sure. To allow the WCAT the time to possibly fix the issues.
Do you need a motion for that?
No, without objection, unless anyone's objecting. Seeing none, we'll
Thank you.
take a 10-minute break and resume.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I got a contract. So the only ones coming to sign this one. So you're signing
I don't know.
that there and there.
Only he can read them.
So that's what we're trying to troubleshoot right now.
How about that? There we go.
Okay. Brian, can we have you talk for a moment? Bring up the PowerPoint. We want to make sure it can be heard and seen and all of that.
Sure. It doesn't look like I have sharing ability yet.
Yes, we will do that right now. Thank you.
Okay.
Everybody in studio see this? Okay, thank you. All right, sounds good. Brian, we can hear you. We can see you out there.
Okay, great.
Sounds good. I think we're ready. Thank you, Ian.
Me? Yes, I can. Sure. So I'm Brian Black, architect with SMMA. Oh, okay.
Ryan wanted us to do a countdown.
Hold on one second.
Okay, so thank you all very much for that, for the little break we had. We want to thank everyone, of course, at WCAT for their constant work and constant our professionalism, but the break was in order to fix the technical glitch, which of course they have done. So we are now back in full session, and next up is the presentation from our consultants regarding the high school project. Dr. Lyons.
Thank you. If the group could do just brief introductions for the committee and the community that's watching, that would be helpful.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Lyons. I'm Brian Black, architect with SMMA. I'm here with our segment of the team tonight to give an overview of the new high school project design progress. So with me tonight, we have, maybe folks can just say hello when I introduce you. From the SMMA team, Megan Collins is a landscape architect with SMMA.
Hello.
We've got Alan DeHaan, who is the project architect.
Hello.
And with us from the OPM left field is Lynn Stapleton.
Hello, everybody.
And Tim Baker, also from Left Field.
Hello, everyone.
And I think that's all of us from the Design OPM team. So thank you very much for inviting us in for this update. When I went back and looked through presentations, I didn't realize that it had been actually several months since we had spoken with you and given you the last update. We've been quite busy in those months, and so has the leadership team for the project, and a good segment of the educators that we've been meeting with, and staff and folks who have spared time during the summer to meet with us and to help us with programming. So I'm going to walk you through, after I hand it to Megan and she updates on site design, I'm going to talk about the building programming efforts, as well as exterior and interior building design, and then I'll hand it back to Lynn to talk about next steps. So from here, I'll give it to Megan.
Hi. So it sounds like it's been quite a while since you guys have heard from us. And so this is our latest site design update. We are using the roundabout scheme in order for us to take into account what we've heard from leadership within the town as being the preferred intersection, as well as what will be the most space conscious for us as far as our planning of using space for the field. As we had in the previous update, we are still having the field in front of the school. We have been working to adjust the placement of the field, both within the site north and south, as well as working on the elevation of the field itself. We have been working to include programming for all of the track and field, and we've actually been able to expand the programming a little bit, which I'll talk about on the next slide. We have been working on developing, obviously, the parking program, as well as the circulation. We are still connecting the school entrance out through an entry commons that is connecting us to the sloped walkways that will bring us up to the track and field. And there's opportunities there for a couple of social spaces that have some tiered seating and some, and we'll be able to get some planting in there for shade and for additional interest. And then at the back of the building on the west side, we've been working on a central commons, which will be a great place for socialization, somewhere that that has a much more flexible use. This area is accessible through the dining commons. It's accessible through the art spaces. So we see it as really a space that is multi-use and can be used by students, teachers, both for socialization and for education. And then on the south side, we have been working on getting some spaces together to be a bit more formal classroom spaces. And so these outdoor classrooms, one of them is a much more flexible, large open space, and one is a tiered seating area that is built into the slope of the hillside. And then we also have worked to connect, create a pedestrian connection that you can see sort of climbing up the hill there, so that the back of the school can be accessible up to the football stadium and the tennis courts and the baseball field, as well as the ropes courses up there too. And it's currently off of this plan right now, but we have been exploring expansion of the Landrigan Field parking lot as well in order to meet the needs of the parking program. And so that has been added to the plan, and you will be able to see that in some of our next updates. And then, oh, I see my lines got a little shifted. So these, this is to zoom in and to show that we were able to expand the track program from the existing track program, which was only a 6-lane track with 6 lanes straight. And so our new plan includes an 8-lane straight, which will hopefully help to make track meets go a little faster. We've heard some feedback from the athletic director that the track program is quite robust and takes quite a long time to host meets. And so we're hoping that you know, this expansion of the existing program will help to ease those tensions a little bit. We also have been able to work into the site here seat walls for seating for audience for 330 people. And so those will be worked into the landscape so that they are not obtrusive on the view looking from Farm Street, but that they really do offer opportunity for family to come and watch as students are partaking in track and field events. And adding those two items to the program was really what the site could handle, and so we've really done our best to try and accommodate as much as we could, and really get as much out of this very constrained site as we can. And I will hand it back to Brian.
Thanks, Megan. So I'll walk you through the programming and the plan update. Before I do, I just want to peek back at where we kind of started with the partie or the primary diagram for the building. It was based on the idea that there should be, in support of the educational program on the right-hand side, 4 academic clusters that would create interdisciplinary adjacencies, also create a high degree of transparency, and really anywhere we have the opportunity to make outdoor-indoor connections that we would do so. And you're seeing the fruit of that that key goal in some of the work that Megan and her team are doing. On the left-hand side, there are many other goals that we're looking to accomplish here, and sustainability is a really high priority one of those. But really just to sort of reinforce where we started with the diagram and to see how that's become really a working plan. And I must say, we are still closer to the beginning of design than we are to the end of it. So when it starts looking like a plan looks finished, or it looks like a building that's ready to be built, there's still a long way to go. There's still a lot of input we need. And we're very excited about the point that we're at now. So we think that we've come a long way in terms of setting up a structure here with the heart of the school in the center, that's the dining commons, and the 4 academic clusters located around it, and kind of spiraling off of that main central space. We made a sort of a montage of what the project is starting to look like from a point of sort of hovering over Farm Street, looking back with the new building constructed on the old Beasley Oval and with the new Beasley Oval in the foreground. So this is what a 260,000 square foot building, 3 stories tall, looks like on that site. It will be a primarily brick masonry building on the exterior. I'll talk a bit about materials a little bit more in a second. But just to give you a sense of the three-dimensionality of what's becoming a building design fully, and to give some context as we look back at the plan again. So a sort of quick walkthrough has us coming from the main entry area here in the center, and one that is marked and can be seen from a distance as the place to enter the building. There's a secure entry through 2 vestibules where there's entry into the main admin area, which is in that light sort of orangey color. We worked closely with admin of different subgroups to talk about how best to distribute administrative space throughout the building. Where should student supports be located relative to the building, potentially separated, and the way we're showing now has guidance suite and special education admin clustered kind of in the center between the 2 academic wings on the left, while the administration, the leadership of the school with the principal's office, conference room, and really the general entrance into the school here at the front. As we work our way back into the plan, we find not just a double-loaded corridor, but one that actually has a middle core element. So the orange space is kind of an anchor of career, vocational, technical lab space, which becomes really the hands-on learning space for all of the classrooms around it. And so you can see also that we've got science classrooms in the same wing as other general education classrooms, and therefore there's an ability in the future when the structure is less departmental and more interdisciplinary, there's an opportunity for that immediate sharing between disciplines just across the corridor. So that's the arrangement that you see echoed down on the bottom. This is more of an arts wing, if you will, anchored by 3 classrooms that front out onto that central common space. There's a Mac lab in the center, so you get both the sort of traditional 2D and 3D art in the purple rooms. You get digital art in the orange room, and potentially the business classroom nearby makes it more of sort of an entrepreneurial wing, if you will. So there are lots of abilities to layer program here. As we move to the right, we've got health, wellness, and athletics in blue, and we've got the phys ed alternatives anchoring the space with the auxiliary gym at the end on the right. That's the gymnastics gym, replicated in size from what the school has now. And then the locker rooms are adjacent to the outdoors, next to where the track and field will be in the future. On the bottom, the purple space is the auditorium and the music suite. And so we've met with these big programs over the summer in order to get good feedback and feel comfortable going into a pricing effort that we're currently engaged in. We issued documents last Friday. The pricing will come back in a few weeks, and then discussions really get interesting when we're talking about dollars and cents. But we, all of the small space of the admin, all of the big space of 2 of the bigger programs on the right, and also discussions about educational technology, special education, how should that be located throughout the building. We've had meetings about safety and security. On the right-hand side, we've met with our friends at WCAT and walked through and developed with them a plan that is a test fit of the new space in the new school. And also on the right in the gray, near the bottom, is the district office space. So we really have a high level of confidence as we are developing the scheme, that we're headed in the right direction. We have a couple of views from level 1 first, entering the building at the dining commons, seeing as you enter a large, what we call learning stair. So in the morning, this would be the main route for students going to level 2 and making a right into the classroom wing, or going straight ahead and making a right there. And then there's a large stair on the right-hand side that goes up through all 3 levels. On the left, on the upper level, you can see the gym. It's up on level 2. And down below is the servery, which is fronting into the main cafeteria space to the left. You can see the effort we're making to really drive a line of sight through the building to get good natural light inside, and actually try to bring some of the outside in and make really strong connections to nature. Here we can see going up on level 2 and looking back toward the entry. The media center is now wrapping over the main entry and really animating the front of the building, as well as the interior of the space. So it's really a space that's kind of in the round, and with lots of differentiated seating opportunities for different kinds of personalities and learners. On level 2, again, to the left are the main academic sort of general education space, wrapping around some of the career vocational space. Teacher planning is this location on all 3 levels. It's really the anchor space for the teachers to go to when they're not teaching in the classrooms. We're looking at a high utilization rate of classrooms that will really sort of make that space a second home, if you will. Touchdown space, workspace, and collaboration opportunities with really teachers of different disciplines outside their own. The media center is a single-story space with a sort of a classroom and support space as you walk in, and then it opens to a large double-height space as sort of a bridge element over the entry. Again, on the right is the gym. There are other sort of associated elements, health classrooms, and the adaptive PE and PT/OT spaces in special education in dark green. Culinary arts is also here, that has a nice connection both to health and to potentially becoming kind of a concession stand, if you will, for the gym. And more on the left, again, we've got, we're showing early education here in the center. We've got an engineering classroom on the other end. So there's really a wide variety of space that we're including here. Moving to the exterior for just a few minutes, we do want to connect what we do and sort of the imagery and iconography of the building to be very connected to the Wakefield architectural context. And so there are definite themes that we're picking up on: the persistence of red brick and natural stone. There's a mix of traditional languages. There's a rhythmic ordering of windows, if we're to kind of distill some of the motifs and to really kind of bring this into the current age, if you will. And contrasting sills and detail elements are something that we've noticed. Most of the schools in the district are almost all red brick. The Galvin has some of that stone element kind of mixed in with it. As we look at materials, we're very conscious of cost. And if you watch the stock market today, you know that that inflation is a global problem. It's a big deal that the project will have to come to terms with. And so we're looking at the humble brick to really kind of carry the day in terms of the primary building cladding material. We can afford probably some metal and glass elements, but not a lot of the more expensive sort of rain screen materials and porcelain porcelain tile, terracotta are probably out of our price range these days. We hope that things come back to normal sometime soon. But we really are, we have more of a kind of a mathematical approach to how much of each material we have on the building. The opaque walls, again, mostly brick masonry with stone base and window sills, and also some precast banding that I'll show in a second. And then the windows and curtain walls will be very high performance. Those will be 25% of the wall enclosure, and that's a target that will get us to our energy efficiency targets that are going to deliver a really high level efficient building that has a sustainability rating of LEED version 4, at least certified, and very probably silver level. We're on the cusp of gold, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Again, there will be some trim materials, mostly metal. Roof screens are something that we're carrying currently in the project. The roofing is a light color so as to mitigate the heat island effect. We've done many iterations of the exterior. We're still doing more development on this. We'll meet again with the focus group, interior and exterior design, in a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, to have another follow-up. But the trend here is towards something that looks of its time, but yet has some of those timeless elements of the rhythmic ordering, some detail elements that tie in with the traditional architecture, but truly, this should be a building of its time, and we are going to balance really, the feel of the architecture. I have to say the coloration is not there yet in terms of the dark banding. That would be a much lighter color, probably in the gray range. And the base also is meant to represent a sort of medium stone color. So here are some kind of stand-ins for what the material on the building would actually be. On the bottom is a flamed granite from Maine, fairly affordable. Whether we can afford windowsills of that material, those are details we'll get into more when we have line item pricing. Here's a view of the building as you look across from Farm Street. And so we're standing roughly 4 feet above the field level, looking back toward the main entry. It's a long building from left to right. So we're trying to animate it. We're trying to create at the entry sort of a pop-out that has some character, some movement, really communicates that is where the action is, and that's the way to get in and out of the building. You can see the subtle grading, as Megan mentioned, going up to the field, and some terracing with some bench elements. In addition to the ground level outdoor classrooms, we have the opportunity for outdoor classrooms up on level 2. So outside of the science rooms, this could be environmental science with outdoor lab space. It could also be pre-function space for the large group instruction, which is right inside that bit of curtain wall. And then looking back again, this is without all of the trees and shade structures and elements that Megan and team are working on. So the next time you see this, it'll be a lot more populated and look more realistic. But to give you a sense of the space, this is where we are. Just really quickly, the interior materials are pretty much what you would expect for a school and a high school, with high wearing materials that are affordable, using a neutral palette for the base, and then focusing efforts in terms of getting bright color and pops here and there with paint, using paint and wall covering. Acoustic treatments on ceilings, some of which could be looking like wood. We like to bring in some wood to get warmth. But we're also aware, that different people experience the building differently sensorially. So we're very attuned to not creating really kind of garish colors and patterns that are visually sort of challenging. So also, we'll have window coverings at both interior and exterior glazing, both for sun control on the outside and for privacy and protection on the inside. Some of the other materials, again, very high wearing, fairly neutral, and then looking for some of the accent colors to populate things. So we've just submitted our pricing documents on Friday, and I'll hand it to Lynn to talk about where that puts us in the overall scheme of things.
So for the past year, actually, we've been working through the MSBA process, putting together a feasibility study, which has culminated into the schematic design of the preferred option. We started back, forming the project team, which is Module 1 under MSBA's process. And by the time the OPM was on board and the designer was on board was this time in September of last year. We quickly entered into the feasibility study phase, which consisted of 2 submissions to MSBA. The first being the preliminary design program, which was basically the educational program, as well as identifying all the viable options that we would like to explore as we moved into the preferred schematic. And we submitted the preliminary design program in February of 2022 and entered into the preferred schematic report, where we narrowed down the various options to the preferred option. We submitted that submission to MSBA in May of 2022, and we received MSBA board approval to move forward with the design into schematic design in June of 2022. We've been working on schematic design since the end of June, and we are currently in the, as Brian said, in the cost estimating phase. Once we receive cost estimates, we will be putting together the project budget. Brian gave you a great overview of what the project scope is. The intent of schematic design is to put together a project scope and budget that both the MSBA and the town can approve. So the project we are looking to submit the schematic design to MSBA for their review at the end of October 27th. MSBA will review it and make their decision by December 21. And assuming MSBA board approval of the schematic design, would be asking the town to approve the project scope and budget sometime in January with a debt exclusion vote. A few things that we were looking at in the cost estimating exercise that we are trying to break out, just to help explain a little bit about the cost of the project. These breakout areas are spaces that are unique to Wakefield High School, and therefore would not necessarily be in a standard high school. So when we get the cost, these will be extra cost on top of the cost to build a regular high school. So this will help everybody understand a little bit why the costs will be coming in as they will. We will be having a public forum to explain all the costs in October before we submit to MSBA. A few key dates that are coming up. We started the cost estimating process and we're looking to complete that by September 30th. we met today and we'll meet again on the 15th with representatives from Northeast Metro Tech, as well as various town stakeholders that are involved in the decision on the intersection design. And we will also be having a few more programming meetings for site and interior and exterior design before we make our submission to MSBA. We'll have a public forum on September 27th where we'll show the final design of the building before submitting, and we'll be having our cost reconciliation meeting on October 3rd. We plan to present the total project budget to the PBC on October 6th for their blessing, and we're doing that in advance of a requirement by MSBA to provide a budget notification to MSBA on October 13th, which is 2 weeks prior to the schematic design submission to MSBA on October 27th. We also plan to attend Wakefield Town Day on October 8th and have renderings and presentation boards and be there available to help answer any questions that the public may have. Our final public forum before we submit to MSBA the schematic design will be on October 18th, and this is where we'll explain the construction cost as well as all other project costs at this forum. And then just next slide, please, Brian. Just a quick look ahead, assuming that the project passes, we'll be looking to start design development and construction documents right away in February of 2023. And we brought the construction manager on board at the beginning of schematic design to help us with the cost estimating exercises. And Bond Building was the selected CM, and we brought them on to help us with not only costing, but also help us to prepare to get ahead by doing some early bid packages prior to completion of design. And we're hoping to get started with these early packages as early as the summer of 2023. This will help us put us with completing the new building by the late spring of 2026, with moving furniture and teachers in over the summer and having them ready to start the 2027-2028 school year in the new building. Once we get everybody moved into the new building, we'll start demolition of the existing building in the summer of 2026. And that will run till the summer of 2027. And at that point, the entire project will be complete. Does anybody have any questions on the timeline or schedules?
Lynn, I maybe had one question on your date for the community forum. The website says that it's the 28th. And I know you mentioned the 27th, and I got an email communication that said it was the 27th, so.
We had originally said that it was going to be the 28th, but we had to coordinate with WCAT and they couldn't do it on the 28th. So we moved it to the 27th.
Okay, so just an update to the website is all that is?
Yes, and we just put out notices, so you should be seeing that posted on the website, Facebook, and also on the town website as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Jen McDonald sent something out already this evening, so we appreciate that. Any questions from the committee?
I had a couple of design questions. Actually, so I know in some of the community forums, one thing that was spoken about was public use of spaces. when school wasn't in session. And I'm just curious, could you show me sort of how the project is envisioning bringing people in from the outside into spaces like the theater space, the gymnasium? The gymnasium seemed really rather adjacent to the entryway. So I think I was more curious about the theater space.
Right, so actually here's an eye-level view of right after you enter through the secure vestibule. So you've arrived at the dining commons, and the theater space is just beyond this stair. You can just see the corner of the wall where the entry to the theater will be. And so it's a fairly direct line of sight from the front door. And it's simply walking in, and the CAF becomes sort of a pre-function space, if you will. It's meant to be really always on. So one can walk through that and then arrive at the doors at the back of the auditorium here.
Okay. And there'll be...
we've heard, some desire out there to try to make the entry to the auditorium easier. I think it's simply a function of really the constraints of the site that force us to choose either the gym or the auditorium to be out front. And so I think two things. One, having the locker rooms and gym more adjacent to the field seems like a natural, adjacency that would be, would bear some fruit. Also, the gym tends to be more active during the day, and so has an ability to animate the space. As you can see here, we can put some glazing in and really get the sense of an active sort of environment in here, where with the auditorium, it's more difficult to do that. The auditorium doesn't often offer that sort of animation quality to the space either. We do see the potential for a second connection if this sort of works out in terms of the design, and there are many safety and security issues that are kind of at stake. There are meant to be doors out from the space to the rear of the school, which then connects sort of up to Landrigan with potentially more parking there. So there could potentially be a second promenade coming in, but I don't want to overpromise that because there are still, I think, some hurdles in terms of the design that we need to look at.
Great. Another question I had is, I see a lot of stairways, and I thought I saw possibly 2 elevators called out. What are we doing for sort of that ADA accessibility? Is it as we create a 3-floored structure?
Yes.
Yeah. So, what are we doing in that space?
So the elevators, there's one here, and there's another one there. So the one that's more central to the academic wing, so 3-story wing. So we definitely need an elevator to serve all 3 floors. And we're actually still working on trying to get this closer to kind of the edge of the CAF so that it's easier to close off the school wing, but be able to access the elevator. That's meant to be mainly a passenger elevator. The second elevator at sort of the auditorium back of house, and also kind of midway to the athletic phys ed area, is meant to be more of a service freight elevator with a higher capacity, so that, and again, as a function of the compressed nature of the site, for example, if wrestling mats need to be moved from the multi-purpose studio up to the main gym, that potentially they could go up through a large elevator. But there are plenty of other big, equipment pieces that could go in even just a simply oversized freight elevator, and potentially, musical instruments. I know there are drum sets and fairly large instruments that need to go up to the gym or would ideally go up to the gym. And so that's a challenge in terms of the design. So those are the two elevator locations. The stairs on the perimeter are mainly for egress. So at the ends of corridors are the natural place where folks navigate to get out of the building. The gym actually requires 4 means of egress. So basically 1, 2, 3, and the 4th is down through the dining commons. So there's, sort of a little bit more than you would expect because we have a high occupancy up at level 2. The learning stair is somewhat a unique piece as a stair you can occupy. And we do try to make effort to make that feel able to be participated in by those with, call them disabilities for lack of the correct term. Anyone throw it out there if I need to know that word. There's an ability to carve out for a wheelchair in the front or in the back so that one can, feel like you're on the stair without being able to actually get to the middle of it. The C-shaped stair here is sort of a monumental type stair. It's winding up all 3 levels. It's open to the dining commons, so it becomes an activator kind of visually, and it's really going to take a lot of traffic sort of in the middle of the academic core. The ones on the perimeter will also be used to communicate between levels quite a bit. So that's sort of the overview of all the vertical circulation.
Thank you.
Brian, can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
So in terms of the breaking ground and the move-in date to the new building, can you just review that again, please?
Sure.
Then did you want to go back to this, please? Sorry, I will get there.
Silver puff thing that was on the front part.
Excuse me, can you repeat that question?
So the question, Lynn, was breaking ground. When would the pad prep and all of that start? And when would we move into the building?
So we would be looking to start groundbreaking as soon as school is out at the end of 2020, school year of 2023. And we would be looking to turn the building over 3 years or 3 years later in June of 2026 to start your furniture fit out and technology fit out, and then the move over the summer so that you'd be ready to occupy and bring students in September of 2026.
Thank you, Lynn. Appreciate it.
Doug, I had a question for you, and only because it came up with Miss
Yeah.
Beasley a few meetings ago too. So obviously the Beasley Oval will be renamed.
Correct.
Is the intention that, I think the gym is called the Plansky Gym, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that going to continue with the new gym?
It would continue.
And the theater?
Correct.
What about the theater? Will
So
that be the TSB
So
theater? Or?
I've discussed, and the architects have discussed with the PBC that the naming of the would be the Savings Bank Theater.
Yeah.
Where we would kind of work that in anyone that was kind of the original kind of donors, and the plaques would be replicated or brought over to be shown in the new space as well.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
If I could just add to that, that has been sort of the discussion from the very beginning, that anything that had a memorial name attached to it would continue, into the new space. Also, Wakefield Memorial High School, in and of itself, is a memorial to a veterans memorial. So that would certainly continue, in any of the plaques or any of the the monuments that exist around the current building would have a place in the new building.
Cool. Thank you.
Amy?
Probably way ahead of myself, but I was trying to figure out how long we'll be without a track. Because if they're gonna start the summer of 2023, right? So you would lose it the 23, 24 year. Because then they have to build it anew when they knock
Right.
down.
Right.
So 4 years probably.
I'm thinking 3, but,
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
No, because they have to
they
take the
can't,
building down.
Take the current building down before you can build a track on it.
Does that say into 2027 fields? I don't have my glasses, so I
So
can't see.
Lynn, did you hear that question?
Yes, it'd be 4 years.
4
it
years.
does make more sense.
Okay.
From the beginning of the construction to the demolition site work
Correct.
in
A long
fields.
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
4
When,
years.
at what point in the project planning do you talk about outplace, like what you do with all
The sports?
the sports, yeah?
I think it's just part of the planning and the process, and the AD would be, work with other districts, just like Stoneham is doing, just like Saugus is doing, just
Yeah.
like any other of the districts are doing. It's difficult, it's inconvenient, right? It's hard on the athletes, yeah.
So that happens probably after it's approved by the town, and then you get into those smaller conversations.
Correct.
And the predominant sport will be track that's impacted. Because you'll still have soccer fields, you'll still have football fields.
No, that's a
Well, but-
practice
But
field.
no, in terms of practice fields, like, so
That
that's
was
a.
more games, I was saying,
That's
sorry.
a
Yeah.
Voc practice field, and
Yep.
so we might benefit because the Voc might be a little bit ahead of us, and we might be able to use their facility like they use ours currently. So there might be an opportunity there for us to do that, but.
That should help you cut off at least a year, if not a year and a half, of if you could use their facilities.
Could I ask one question while we're on this slide? Because this is the first rendition that I've seen sort of the parking flushed out as much as it is. I believe in our current configuration, we have 400 and some odd spots. Do we know, and then kids park on Farm Street. Do we know how many spaces we're expecting to capture with this current design?
The current parking at the school, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I can send you, we do have a chart saying what it is. But our program has been to include 330 spaces, which is far above the zoning requirements for the occupation of the school. And so we are doing our best to accommodate that. And that is part of why we would like to see Landrigan Field parking expanded, because we could have some much nicer social and educational spaces in front of the school if we were able to sort of segregate some of those additional parking spaces over to Landrigan.
So Megan, does the 330 does not count the Landrigan parking lot?
The 330 does include the Landrigan parking lot.
Excuse me.
And I apologize, I don't have my our chart to show you exactly what the breakdowns are.
I thought we were at least matching what we had on site.
I think that's.
Yeah, so this is exceeding currently what's on site. The Landrigan parking area right now was included in that 400 number that you're thinking about from the feasibility study. And there's, I think there's like 110 spaces up there. So I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe that that we are still exceeding what is currently at the school site.
Okay.
That slide makes the field look so much higher than the building, is it?
It is.
It's that much higher?
There's a significant grade difference between the
But-
street level and where the track is now.
Right, but there's also the image, the difficulty in creating a three-dimensional image
Oh,
in
yeah,
in a
that thing
2D
looks
shape,
like-
right?
Yeah.
And so,
Because the building is 3 stories high.
Yeah.
so Brian, is there an elevation where we could see from the front of the track at street level? Because I think it's, the way it looks is, it looks like the track is considerably higher than the building. Or can you just share
Currently-
what the elevation may be?
Sorry, Doug, to cut you off. The field will sit approximately 4 feet above the entry drive and the school entrance. We were able to, balance that out more earlier in the phase. We were looking at closer to 6 or 7 feet, and so we've been really trying to manipulate earthwork, but it's still an ongoing process as we get more information from the geotech. So currently, the image that you're looking at is showing about a 4-foot difference.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
And does that include, it looks like it's dropping it down from Farm Street to so take a stepped approach to bring the field closer to the level of the school, and then, so it's not as
That's
significant?
exactly right.
Yeah, okay.
So the field sits midway between the entry of the building and Farm Street. So it's a 4-foot step up there and another 4 more gradually down at the bottom.
So it splits.
That makes more sense.
Right.
Yeah.
One nice aspect of that is it creates that kind of bowl effect around the track, which could be nice for sitting and just sort of, it sort of comes almost a little linear park along the street.
Nice.
We'll definitely have better imagery, at least in a couple of weeks' time, and we'll be filling in more of, the real context. So you'll see the Woodville School kind of in the distance here. You'll see some houses along the street, more of a tree line in the distance, kind of softening things. So we're getting there, not quite there in terms of the realism yet, but working up to it.
Are there any underground facilities in the building structure?
Within the building,
Correct.
there is, basically there's drainage from the roof and, sort of plumbing systems going down below. And we'll tie into utilities that are, on site. There is a culvert that runs basically where we're standing that does need to be relocated as part of the project, and that's another piece that we'll see in the cost model. But that's a utility that's in place, and it just all the elements are very tight together, so there is some change that needs to happen there.
So I'm assuming because of the low water, the high water table, there's no basement to the structure, is that correct?
There is no level below the ground, that's correct.
Yep, thank you.
There are a couple of elements that will kind of pitch down, like the loading dock will be down about 4 feet, and sort of the quasi pit in the auditorium in front of the stage will dip down 3 feet, but those are, relatively minor. And the net effect is we're going to be raising the building a couple of feet to begin with from the current sort of level of the field, and that's to get positive drainage away, to mitigate this difference in grade as you go across the campus. So we're kind of leveling out that difference. So we're mainly above, even the existing grade as you go around the building.
Great, thank you.
Lynn, could you share with the committee the information that was discussed at our leadership meeting about the energy park?
Yes, we've been meeting with WMGLD to hear what they had to say about building an energy park further up Hemlock Road, which will serve both the Metro Tech as well as the high school. And it's going to help us in a few ways. We won't be required to have an emergency generator on site because they'll be providing the backup power. But it's a battery park where they store energy, and it's going to assist us in being able to go to an all-electric school.
And it will, so that.
It's supposed to be complete in time for Metro Tech's opening, which is about a year ahead of us, a little more.
So that collaboration with WMGLD, the VOC, and this project will save us, anywhere between $1.5 and $2 million because, in regard to emergency generators, and having enough power at that level to power the entire building or to power both schools is really an amazing collaboration and very kind of innovative on the part of both the town leadership and WMGLD. Yeah. Thanks, Lynn.
Welcome.
How much is this going to cost?
That's not yet.
That's what
That will be our next meeting. Are there any other questions for either the superintendent or the project team?
Can I just ask
Yes.
quickly? I heard it mentioned a few times about safety and like the building, you kept calling it like a vestibule or something, like the entrance. What, I guess, safety precautions did you take in building in this new modern building and for today's world? Like what safety structures did you use, or just to reflect today's world?
Yeah, I think it's a topic that we take seriously. It's on everyone's mind when you engage in an important project like this. The project will be here for many decades. And we don't want to really go into details of the actual design of security and safety systems, but we have had meetings with stakeholders, with first responders, with our security consultant, who really specialize in kind of engineering systems that are there for deterrence, are there for surveillance, which is a big part of the overall picture. And so, what usually is called for is a balanced approach that allows for procedures that are being taught to go into practice, right? So, the building will be covered with, when I say covered, kind of optically covered by a series of closed caption cameras. There will be sensors on the doors. So there's a high degree of monitoring that will reinforce, really the more passive and more human aspects of response to occur. And I kind of will leave it at that. Mm-hmm. There's also a lot to be said for the transparency aspect of security, in that not only is it, again, a piece that allows a reaction to create a safe environment, but also creates an environment in which the psychological factors are in place, and there's a high degree of kind of self-monitoring, if you will, kind of not only the student body, but also the assistant principals and principal, the SRO. Everyone has a role to play, and so it's going to be a combination of factors. There are definitely engineering pieces that will remain sort of hidden, but there are definitely those in place, and I think we're getting really good feedback from all the right people in terms of how to approach this for a modern building.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts? Well, thank you. Thank you very much for your work and for your presentation tonight. And I know that certainly we'll have you back, sooner than a couple of months. I'm looking. You had mentioned early on that you hadn't been presenting to us since the spring, and I think that was correct, either April or May. But certainly the committee has been having a number of updates from the superintendent and the facilities director, as well as Dr. Piscadlo and myself and others who are on the committees. But we certainly want to have you back as we all work together to make sure that the public becomes more and more attuned and engaged in the project as some very important community information becomes readily more available. So I'm sure we'd like to probably have you back next month, especially to discuss and present timing around the budget proposal. But just to put that on your radar screen, and Dr. Lyons can figure out the timing. Great. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, all.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, all. Okay, Dr. Lyons, your remarks and
That is it
presentations?
from my agenda. Thank you so much.
All right, very good, thank you. Okay, item 11, subcommittee and liaison reports, finance and facilities.
Sure.
Mr. Boudreau.
Sure. So we met last Thursday, and Christine talked, about where we were financially. Still a few moving parts, but getting pretty close to being done with the fiscal year end. Tim O'Brien spent quite a bit of time with us talking about this is sort of the behind-the-scenes stuff that a lot of people don't realize is going on all summer. A multitude of projects going on at literally every facility in town. And, Tim and his group have done an incredible job, knocked the ball out of the park, and Tim certainly deserves some credit. He's built relationships over the years. People will go the extra mile for him, so he certainly deserves the credit, but a lot of other people too. So, the buildings are all up and running. They're in great shape. Everything's working, knock on wood. That was great, and thanks, Christine, as always, for a very thorough job on the financials. And our next meeting is, I think we intended to wait until we were getting ready to start the budget process, so I think we agreed to late October, was it? That we were gonna, I don't think we picked a date yet, but I can't remember.
Yeah, we said we would go, once a month until
Yeah.
the budget process began in earnest.
Thanks. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Labor and personnel, there has not been a labor and personnel meeting since our last, but we'll certainly be having one, well, certainly not between now and next week, because we're meeting again a week from tonight, but certainly soon, as we begin to prepare for negotiations and such with Unit A. But we've not had anything in the last couple of weeks. Student services, Amy?
We also have not met probably since June, but we do have a meeting scheduled for October 3rd, Monday at 5. So we'll have more to report in October.
Okay. Policy and communications, Stephen?
Yeah, so we also haven't met since our last meeting, which was a few weeks ago. We will also not meet before the next meeting, but hopefully soon after. We have a few things that we'd like to work on. And so, yeah, we're just getting schedules adjusted and hopefully more to report in the near future.
Okay, very good. One thing that you see on the agenda tonight for the first time, which will be part of our regular agendas, the opportunity for liaison reports. I know we've all had our liaison assignments for a couple of months now, but certainly part of that was the summer, so it wasn't, sometimes there weren't lots of activities, there weren't actually lots of meetings. So we'll leave this sort of open-ended, and as people have a need to share something, which is, we'll leave that open, voluntarily to please share. So with that in mind, any liaisons have a report or something to share with the committee from their There are other town boards that they work with.
I'm in the permanent building committee, so my job was done. I can drop the microphone.
There you go.
We're all set.
Perfect.
So all set.
So, okay, seeing none, but that will be a permanent add-in to the agenda at this point. So please, if you have something to share as your liaison jobs move forward, please be open to doing so. Okay, item 12, future dates and agenda items. Our next meeting is next Tuesday evening, a week from tonight, September 20th at 7:30 p.m. here in studio. Anyone have any recommendations or thoughts for suggestions for make sure the superintendent and myself get on upcoming agendas? If you certainly do.
Could we maybe have Dustin back?
Oh,
We'll definitely do. Yeah, we'll bring Dustin back, and we'll let him speak this time.
Just for a minute, though.
Could we possibly have an update on the bus
Yes.
situation too?
Sure.
Maybe
NRT
next week?
update?
Yeah.
Yep.
Hopefully it'll
I'm
be a
sorry, I
good,
didn't-
positive
what?
update. A bus for
Oh.
buses.
update.
Yeah.
Okay. So if anyone has anything, please just shoot us an email, and we'll make sure we work on that. Okay. Yes, Stephen,
One of the things,
sorry.
as we, because I know that you had just talked to Emma, to SMMA about having some budget discussions in October. Would it be possible to invite Steve Mayo to talk to us from like a town finance perspective,
Sure.
just to give us a little extra insight and sort of where the town sees the funding? Because I know it is a high school, and they sort of assume that it just comes out of our budget, but it doesn't. It's more town related, and so maybe he could sort of give us some insight, answer some questions about sort of what his vision is.
Great idea. Yep, we'll write that down.
Do we want to invite CPAC back? It's a new school year. They came last school year.
Oh, it's the CPAC,
Yeah,
okay.
they were happy.
I had the high school on the brain, and I'm like, yeah, gotcha, yeah, you can do that, sure. Okay. Okay. Anything else? If not, then going around the table with school committee comments. Start at this side. Kevin?
It's kind of hard to believe it's only 5 days into the school. It's 5 days, right?
Yeah.
That have gone
Tomorrow's
by,
day 6.
so which is like a week in a regular school week. So it's great that we're all back in the routine. I'm sure parents are happy. I'm sure. I know I am. But I hope that all our teachers are rested and recharged. And one thing I was thinking about, going through the presentations today, looking at the new high school, is that, sitting here on the school committee, we tried to put all this work, and our administration puts all this work into setting up the school system for success. But I know it's because of my job as a teacher, but it's so hard because when you're sitting in this stage, in the end, you think about the real magic is what happens in the classroom. So like when I was looking at like the auditorium and I was looking at the schematic designs in the presentation, I just kept thinking, man, what really matters is like all the things that are happening just in those rooms. And I think it was just really important to keep our focus, everything we should be thinking about, even though we kind of think it's almost like the forest for the trees. Sorry, probably not making any sense, but the idea that we should always remember the trees and really focus, think about, the instruction that's happening. And I'm really pumped to, talk to the curriculum leaders and, Kara, and, really look at, those developments over the next few months. So yeah, looking forward to a great school year.
Mike?
Yeah, I sort of echo Kevin's comments. It's what I'll describe as the closest thing to normal we've had in a long time, which feels great. I think everybody's excited to get back. Certainly there's catch up. We understand that, given what everyone went through the last couple of years, but great job getting us ready, all the administration. Building, there's just too many people to thank for getting us to this point that you won't ever hear about, but they were there doing a lot of work behind the scenes. So great job. Looking forward to this year. Thanks.
Stephen?
I wanted to say thank you to DPW and to the Wakefield Police Department for sort of helping us with some signage around the schools as we opened up schools, sort of just letting motorists know to remember that school is back in session, and they should sort of slow down a little bit around our spaces. I just appreciate the community aspect of that sort of you put the call out and how quick that response is, and so thank you to them for filling that role. I had the opportunity to go to a PTO meeting last night, and I said before in a comment about how it felt like the environment was a little more electric, as people, I think, are more engaged in volunteerism, and they want to be back in school, and they want to be back in their students' lives in a whole bunch of aspects. And the meeting that I went to last night was the most well-attended PTO meeting I have ever been to. And I'm sure that is replicated across the district, and not just in PTO meetings, but in other aspects of community and schools. And so I just think that's great to see. And I think we're going to capitalize on that, on a whole lot of fronts. And I'm sort of excited to see those relationships remade. One relationship that I got to make was Angela Driggers, who is the new elementary METCO coordinator. She got to speak with us about sort of the METCO program and restarting some host family things. And come to find out that her students went through the program, and she has great vision into sort of what have been successes for her, and just sort of having her come through the space and now manage with that unique perspective is great. And it just speaks to sort of, I think, how well the administration does in putting people in roles to be successful. And so that's exciting. So a lot of good things happening right off the bat. And just, to Mike's point, just too many people to thank. So.
Great, thank you. Amy?
Yeah, I wanted to share a civics project update. Remember, we talked about civics projects in June. The school committee sometimes gets emails from the students, and there's a lot of great ideas, but given the time frame and the amount of, some of them, but I did get one from three young women, 8th graders, Emma Ix, Sophia DeAngelos, and Allison Graham, and they wanted to put period products in the bathrooms at the middle school. So I sent it to Catherine Dinger. I'm like, I think this is actually attainable. And so they had a meeting, and then the summer came, and I was kind of thinking, I wonder what happened. But then we got an email from the principal, Meg Wem, and the project actually went through. So that's good, great news. So thank you to those 8th grade students. Good job.
Tim O'Brien, again, was involved with that.
Who was? Tim O'Brien.
Another shout out.
Well, there was actually, I could have, Catherine, within minutes, Catherine went to Lisa Jaberti, who shared their information from Jerry Lynn and Tim O'Brien, because they had just done it at the high school. I didn't want to, but it was really within minutes. We had all these contacts. We gave it right back to the 8th grade students, and then they took it from there. Yeah.
Great. Kevin?
Joining my colleagues and welcoming everyone back. I've just heard so many positive things about the start of the year, were echoed by many around the room, and little hiccups here and there, but it's only made possible, it can only be successful because of the hard work of so many. So thank you to the great administration here, teachers that dedicated so much time setting up classrooms and doing those sorts of programs. And then I just hear so much about the K program, and I hope that that's something that continues, because it's such a wonderful way, I think, for our youngest learners, or most of our youngest learners. I know we have pre-K, but to get acclimated to their school and class and things like that, it's just such a wonderful program, and I hope that it continues for into perpetuity, or as long as we think that it's worthwhile. But just welcome back to everyone. Looking forward to a great year.
Eileen?
Yeah, I want to welcome everyone back. I know that it's been a successful start, the first 5 days and everything. I wanted to say that I really enjoyed the Power School app. I downloaded it, and I could easily, the first 3 days schedules were there, so I could easily go through each of my kids and see what they were doing, and then it was something we could talk about of the special that they had or whatever they were working on. So I really enjoyed the Power School app, and I'm really looking forward to it in its full usage. It is pouring. We can hear it now, so sorry that distracted me. I wanted to also say that I'm really looking forward to more designs for the new school, the new high school. I'm super excited about that. Just the whole thing. It just looked amazing, and I can't wait to see more. Great job for everyone involved.
Thank you. I certainly join my colleagues in everything that was said. So I will leave it at that. Without any further ado, we have a motion to adjourn.
Move that the school committee adjourn its meeting of Tuesday, September 13th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously. Grab your umbrellas and have a wonderful rest of the night, all. Take care. Peace.
Oh my gosh.
That totally distracted me.
That's pretty low.